Now, the title of this book will grab you. It is Faith, Purpose, and Politics, Running the Race of My Life. Immediately, I was captivated. Tell me about how you chose your title.
Oh, I don't think I chose this title. It just came to me, and because I know I was in the race of my life.
The party that gets the vote is the party that gets the smoke. Remember that. Now, reparation, and so do their families. Native Americans get reparations. Holocaust survivors get reparations.
Right is right and wrong is wrong. If you're not supposed to be in our country illegally, then you got to go. Okay?
We are always overrepresented in the worst statistics. 15-20% of the population and more than 50% of homeless families. This ain't nothing we've done wrong. This is about the wrong that come with policies specifically for Black Americans. That is not a race-based policy. That's lineage-based. And America can definitely do that. We have to stop.
And so do their families. Native Americans get reparations. Holocaust survivors get reparations. Japanese Americans got reparations from this here land. So who built this here land?
All right. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. I am Tamara Shealy, and y'all don't even have a clue. I've been waiting on this moment this evening. Mr. Greg Marcel, you joined us. Welcome to the broadcast podcast, and we have our special guest, the representative himself, Mr. Vernon Jones.
Thank you. Thank you, Tamara. Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.
See how I'm smiling?
Let me tell you, obviously I'm honored to be here because of you, but to be on here with Marcel, I mean, come on. Marcel, you gotta love him. He's a good brother and he means well, and I like his energy. So to have me on the show with you guys, certainly as your guest, and to be on with him, that means a lot to me. So Marcel, big shout out to you, brother. A lot of love.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I'm happy to be here with you as well. And Tamara, thank you for having me. It's always great to be with you. I don't think people know how often you and I are together in so many different settings, taking this message of what reaching across the aisle to speak with and work with anyone, especially our own people, to help our people.
Yeah. Amen, brother. So Representative Vernon Jones, there's some people that don't know who you are, but let me tell my story first.
Good.
Yeah. But let me tell my story first. Let me tell you how I've been around the Atlanta metro area now for 30 years. And when I moved here, I want to believe during that time you were the CEO of DeKalb County. And what I believe I remember around that time, Representative Vernon Jones, was that how fierce of a fighter you were. And I remember I lived over in Stone Mountain, and when I moved over there, I bought my first little townhouse, and there was no street lights where we were on that side of Stone Mountain. It was dark. It was like neglected. But that was my community. I loved it. But what I remember about you during that time is how you fought for DeKalb County, and you fought for South DeKalb. You fought North DeKalb. You fought anybody for South DeKalb. And I just remember that. And I'm going to let you introduce yourself. I just remember how much of a fighter you were for what was right.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you.
You're very kind. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction again. Marcel, good to be on with you. A little bit about me. I was born and reared on a farm in North Carolina, right on the North and South Carolina line. I know, Marcel, you were on the Georgia-South Carolina line. My mom is from South Carolina, Bennesville, Marlboro County.
Okay.
My dad's North Carolina. And I went to undergrad at HBCU, North Carolina Central University, worked in the private sector, IBM, Bell South, MCI. At the same time, I got elected to the legislature. I think I was about 30, served 8 years. Then I got elected, the first Black to be elected county executive for DeKalb County. At that time, DeKalb County was the largest local government in the state of Georgia, including larger than the city of Atlanta. I managed about 8,000 employees, had about a $4 billion budget. And you're right, we had an executive form of government. So I hired all staff, including police chief, fire chief, about 46 different agencies, including the number 2 largest airport in the state, Department of Transportation, Department of Watershed Management, appointed judges. And so, and you mentioned about infrastructure and lighting. Yeah, there were parts of the county. I didn't do it because it was black or white, which would have to have been African American, but you know, and I know many people knew there were parts of the county that was left behind for whatever reason. And I know one thing, you cannot ever, it's like you have an A student and a C student. If you keep putting all the resources towards A student, the C student would never catch up. And so there were parts of the county that was neglected infrastructure wise, among other things. And I just did the right thing. And that's all that was about. Now, yeah, you got to be a fighter in this business. If you want to do what's right, you're willing to stand up to the establishment, which I had to do, not only the old guards, but also the liberal media. They had an issue with someone coming in like me that wasn't tied to their agenda and used to doing things that they wanted to do things. And so, and that's okay. The feathers come with the chicken. The fact of it is, public service is a higher calling. I had opportunity to build playgrounds, to build water and sewer plants, performing arts theaters, senior citizens facilities, among infrastructure improvements from sidewalks to intersection improvements. But that was my job. I enjoyed doing, including getting the county a dual AAA bond rating. Now you won't hear about that. You hear all the stuff that they were more caught up in my personality as opposed to my solid record of accomplishments. And so that's just a brief synopsis. Oh, I did make a return back to the legislature, served another 4 years in the House of Representatives, and now I'm here. I'm on your show, Tamara. This is a plight. This is an honor to have made your show. Forget about all those other networks, but to make your show, now that is what we call doing it in high cotton.
Oh, thank you, Representative Vernon Jones. I appreciate that. I'm just making sure that I lend my voice to these issues. And Marcel and I, on the heels of our campaigns, he and I both ran in 2022. And, you know, we saw a lot of things that we just couldn't turn a blind eye to. And on the other side of our campaigns, we started working with Republicans. We created an initiative here in Georgia called Recount Georgia 2022 with myself and some other Democrats. We locked arms with Republicans because we wanted to really address election integrity here in this state. So we actually filed a lawsuit. It was dismissed, but we did take steps we asked to have our races recounted here in Georgia. And I've continued to reach across the aisle. So when people saw that I was talking to you, Representative Vernon Jones, they were like, "You talking to him?" I said, "Yes, absolutely I am."
Well, Jesus talked to sinners, didn't he? All right. You got to go where people are.
Exactly. You know, talking about reach across the aisles, they reach across the aisles to work against us. You know, Mr. Jones, I remember when you endorsed Trump, and I remember this outrage, and I've been speaking with some of my followers, and then one of my followers was like, "Well, this is why he got all the backlash," and they showed a picture of you at a MAGA crowd. I'm like, "What's wrong with that?" I said, "No one owns us. The Democratic Party sure as hell does not own us. They owe us." And when you look at the data, the Democrats do not like me. And I call the leadership the Democrats. That's what they are. When you have Black Americans who are the only reason you exist as a party, it's already, the calculations have been done. If you take, they said 25 to 30% of Black voters started voting or just did not vote for the Democrats. Who do vote for them, the party will cease to exist. And yet we are 15 to 20% of the population, but 60% of the homeless. Our wealth is going backwards. 20 to 25% of Black families have a deficit when it comes to their wealth. Another 4.5 million only had $10,000 or less of wealth. And we've lost 90, we've had stolen 90% of our land, while the Democrats go out their way to protect Native American land. They do nothing for Black land. I said, so where do we get this idea that we're supposed to approve or take fealty to a certain party? No, we are supposed to be loyal to policy. If the policy is good for us, support it. And it doesn't matter from whom the policy comes. And in your case, you endorsed Donald Trump. Now, I'm going to be honest. When he was in office,
Stay there before you go too far, Marcel. We got him for a few minutes, but I just kind of want to build. Let's build.
Okay.
So
you gotta love Marcel.
Yeah. Marcel, like, let's go.
You got that right. You know.
So, Representative, let me ask you a question. So you were a Democrat, because I remember you, as a Democrat. Let's talk about how you got from the left to the right. Let's start right there.
Well, let me tell you, I was raised right, always thought right. I happened to have been with a party that made a hard left, where they no longer identified with my upbringing and my community, the Black community. And what I mean by that is, in the Black community, three things are so important. One, faith-based. Black people believe in going to church. I don't know who go to church and stay in church longer than Black people. That's why I started going to white people white people church when I went to college. I can get in and out within an hour. That's when I realized my mama had us on drugs. She drugged us to church on Sunday. She drugged the church on Monday. She drugged the church on Tuesday. Faith was important. The next thing, quality education. My parents were third grade educated. As siblings, they had to take turns on who was going to go to school that day. Can you imagine that? And so my mom and dad focused on us getting a quality education. Two parents, third grade educated, have 6 kids, 5 of them high school graduates, 4 of them college graduates, and 2 of them with advanced degrees. That's a major accomplishment within our community. Second thing, work ethic. My mom and dad believed in hard work. There were no free lunches. Nobody owe you anything. You get out and you work hard. And so those are my basic principles. Now, when I saw the Democratic Party, first of all, start to get to the place where they tell me how I'm supposed to vote. In other words, when white Democrats vote Republican, let's say they used to call them a fancy name. Oh, these are the Reagan Democrats. They were elevated. But when Black people start voting Republican, oh, wait a minute. Don't you know Republicans are racist? How can you? I dare you to vote for Republican. Well, it wasn't so much that Black people didn't know the difference between Democrat and Republican. They were exercising their independent thought. And you and I both know that Blacks originally, the Republican Party was the party of what? To free the slaves. It was a Democratic Party who wanted to preserve slavery. As a matter of fact, Democrats started the Ku Klux Klan. And so when I looked at the Democrat policy, when I saw that where they started treating illegals better than American citizens, when I saw they started to attack the nuclear of the family, and certainly the Black family, where you're no longer promoted to have a father in the home and a mother in the home, they wanted to shift the whole dichotomy of the structure of the nuclear Black family. You go back in the 60s when they started welfare. That really is what set a lot of Black people back, because prior to then in the 60s, 7% of the household had fathers in the home. They were married. They had their own Black businesses. You look now, these years later, 7% is led by a single household. Now Democrats want you to believe that a man can get pregnant. Now the Democrats want you to believe that children, is okay for children, small children, to have transgender operations where they've been mutilated and castrated. These are small children. You have to be 18 to vote. You have to be 21 to buy a pack of cigarettes. But you can say now, because little Johnny wants to wear a dress, and little Johnny's a girl. Look, kids when they're small, I want to be a dinosaur. I thought I was a dinosaur at one time. Did my mother and father treat me like a dinosaur? No. And so, be what you want to be. I'm not anti-gay. I'm not homophobic. I'm not xenophobic. I am claustrophobic, but neither of those other things. So I'm speaking not from hate, but from love. And so when I say the Democratic Party made that hard turn, and when I look at Joe Biden been in office, Joe Biden, he initiated and passed a crime bill where thousands of Black men, a whole generation of Black men were locked away. Many of them died in jail. Their sentences were so egregious and so long. And that same Joe Biden, who want to get out there and put all these Black men in jail, and held up a quarter in the well of the Senate, saying if you get caught with crack as big as a quarter, we're taking you off the street with a mandatory sentence. Well, his son is a crackhead.
Exactly.
The Democrat Party and liberal media, oh, it's a father's love for their son. Well, wait a minute. How many sons went to prison? Their fathers loved them, but Joe Biden put them in jail. And for Joe Biden to stand, and Democrats, they could stand for a Black. Joe Biden stood from the Morehouse College recently, last year, early in the year, and said the reason why Black businesses aren't successful is because they don't have Black lawyers and have lawyers, I should say, and accountants. Wait a minute, that's an insult to black lawyers, black accountants. And it happened to be my lawyer and accountant are both black. Good people, know their job. I didn't hire them because they were black, but they were qualified. So the Democratic Party, when they came along and said, wait a minute, we're suppressed from voting because we can't afford a free photo ID. So a white person has to have a photo ID to mail in their ballot, but a black person doesn't, and it's free in Georgia. Where's the suppression? Where's the suppression? No, suppression is white people making black people feel like they're stupid, they're ignorant, and let us be in charge of you. We'll even build you a house, a habitat house, but not in our community. So there's a number of things when I saw the Democratic Party, what they were doing to black people. I just got to the point, I just said, hell to the no. I like Donald Trump because prior to Donald Trump running for office, a lot of black people got jobs through Donald Trump. I like Donald Trump because when Nelson Mandela got out of jail and came to Georgia, or came to America, period, no corporate company would lend Nelson Mandela a corporate jet to fly around the country. But Donald Trump offered his plane. That's the plane that Nelson Mandela used. When Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton was running for president, who did they run to first to get some money for their campaign? How many awards from the NAACP and others did they give to Donald Trump? But the minute he decided to run for president as a Republican, oh, Donald Trump is a racist. And by the way, over 72 rap songs from Jay-Z on down was made about Donald Trump. They wanted to be like Donald Trump. They wanted Trump change. They wanted the bright lights. They wanted the money. They wanted the infrastructure. They wanted all these things. They wanted to be like Donald Trump. And all of a sudden, Donald Trump's a racist. In fact, Joe Biden is the real racist. Right now, you know what unemployment is right now? Blacks have had a 90% increase of black unemployment under so-called Bidenomics. And these are the same people he said, look, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. And you know what? About 85 to 90% voted for him. If he hadn't done anything for you in the past 50 years, why do you think he's going to do something for you as president? So I know I said a lot there, but there's a lot to be said. So that's when I said, I didn't leave the party. The Democratic Party left me. And I gave them that suite on that plantation and said, I turned the lights off and gave them the key and said, y'all can have this. I can think for myself.
Before you go, stay there, Marcel. I know you're sitting on pins and needles.
You got that right. He's speaking our language.
Let me ask my next question because I want to roll into being a black man on the right. Speak to that, Representative Jones.
Well, it's not so much being a black man on the right. It's a black man, period. How liberals, I didn't say it first, Malcolm X said it, how liberals think that black people really can't think for themselves. So within the Democratic Party, if you don't toe their line, then you ain't black. Mia Love over there in South Carolina, when she ran for statewide, ask her where she get most of her problems from the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party really don't traditionally support financially and encourage blacks to run for statewide office. They want to be the ones that you vote for them. And when they do get behind black candidates, when the Democratic Party get behind black candidates, they are sold out. And what I mean sold out, their entire agenda. You can look here in Georgia. You can look at Warnock. Oh, so you're a pastor from Dr. King's church and you support babies being aborted the day that they're born? You're a pastor from Dr. King's church and you support children being having sex or transgender operations? You're a pastor from Dr. King's church, and you mean to tell me that you support, and you can actually say a man can get pregnant, and you go along with that? That is just that. But you know what? They are willing to get behind a black candidate, especially now because in the primary they can hardly win because the Democratic primary, most of the voters are black. So what they're doing now, they upped it one and said, okay, let's find us a black person that we can fund and get behind. They carry our agenda 100%. And that is what's happening right now.
All right, Marcel, I'm going to come to you in just a minute, but I know we don't have a whole lot of time with Representative Jones, so I want to get as much in as we can of him. Mr. Jones, speak to reparations, because I'm a reparationist. Marcel, he and I both are reparationists. We believe in the repair of Black America. We understand that the only policy that will change the state and fate of Black America is reparations. Please speak to that.
Well, first of all, the biggest sin in America is slavery. Nobody can disagree with you on that. But let's think about reparations. You know, and for 275 plus years, Black people worked and never saw a paycheck. So I can understand why people feel that way, clearly. But if we're going to talk reparations in all fairness, let's start with Africa. Africa needs to start paying. You know why? Although white folks bought slaves, Black folks sold slaves. That's real. You can find it. That's factual. Now, if you decide to give out, let's say California decided to give out reparations to Black people. First of all, which Black people? Because first thing I'm going to say to Kamala Harris, is she going to get a check or is she going to get an invoice? Didn't her family own slaves? And is she poor? Does she need a reparations check? Does she get a check or does she get an invoice? Does Obama get a check or an invoice? So if you are going to give reparations, if you give the average person $1,000, you give them $300,000. Now that money from most of them are going to be spent right away, and then they're going to be broke again. So I think if you are going to do reparations, let's look at where there is a long-term effect, where it affects people for the long haul. What I mean by that, let's look at HBCUs, for example, historical Black colleges and universities. Especially right now, you see what's happening with affirmative action. So what if we start investing through reparations in these historical Black colleges, building them up, letting that be the breeding ground, because it's been the breeding ground, if you will, the economic, if you will, breeding ground for some of the best and the brightest scholars in math, science, arts, religion, politics. So what if reparations went there and we're educating the future generation? Because in fairness, none of us can really say we built this country because we weren't slaves. You're not going to find Black people going to work for free. A lot of them won't work when they're being paid because they feel like they're not being paid enough. So I'm just being realistic here. If you are going to do reparations, let's do it where it really has the long-term effect. What really has the long-term effect, and even at HBCUs, white students, they want to, they can go to HBCUs. They're already going there. But education, to me, open their eyes and giving them an opportunity to go beyond just a paycheck, where they go from working for a paycheck to maybe owning businesses, and they're writing, they're the ones who sign checks, and they're creating jobs and creating opportunities. So that's my position on that. But I understand why, and I understand that it is a sensitive issue.
Marcel, I'm gonna let you kind of we're gonna take this one bite at a time, Representative Vernon Jones, if you don't mind.
Sure, no problem.
Well,
Africa. I wrote down all his talking points. So Africa, let's start there, Marcel.
Okay, Mr. Jones said so many things.
I know, but just stay with me. Stay with me so we can walk through it.
So with the thing about Africa, reparations is really just a debt that the federal government, the American federal government, owes to Black Americans. Because even though it's true what you said, there were several African civilizations that the slave trade would not have happened without their participation. The Europeans could not penetrate the interior of Africa. They couldn't even conquer the empires on the coast. That's a fact. It would never have happened. But still, as far as Black Americans, freedmen, those of us who are Black, who are the citizens of American slaves like you are, especially from Marlboro County in South Carolina, and your roots in North Carolina, and Tamara from Georgia, and me here from South Carolina, we're definitely descendants of people who are enslaved. The truth of the matter is that once the transaction was made, the wealth from our labor and our intellect went to those who purchased us from those African civilizations, because a lot of those African nations didn't exist until colonization, and a lot of the African continent right now is in dire poverty for a lot of different reasons. But the American government owes us the debt because they're the ones that enslaved us and kept us in bondage. And the truth of the matter is, in America, most people who were enslaved were usually the children were third, fourth generation Americans. And the second thing is, at the end of the Civil War, America had somewhere between 42 to 84 trillion dollars in wealth just from our bodies alone. And they had the infrastructure and all the benefits of our wealth. That did not go to the African continent. That went to the American government that enslaved us and really benefited from not just our labor, because people often think slavery is just us in the plantations growing rice and tobacco and indigo. No, but the railroad tracks, okay, the infrastructure of New York City, the insurance companies, banking, and things of that nature.
Okay, so going into another something you said, which Black people? This is lineage-based. So Marcel, I'll let you speak to that as well.
Right. That's a question I get asked all the time. And I'm actually glad people ask that, because a person from Jamaica can't just walk off a plane and say, oh, America owes me because of racism. They've hurt me. No, you chose to come here. So at the end of the Civil War, there was like 4.5 million Black people who were emancipated. And then America was supposed to do Reconstruction. That was supposed to bring us to equity and make us full citizens and give us our equity. Well, that never happened. You know, the Republican Party, who was our party at that time for which we voted, they betrayed us and did the compromise of 1877, pulled the military out, and then we went through horror from Jim Crow, redlining, lynch mobs, sharecropping, you name it. So the Black people who qualify for reparations are those of us who are, first of all, identifying as Black and has been, and have an ancestor who was enslaved and emancipated by the American government. It does not go to Black people who have immigrated to America and are the children of Black immigrants, but don't have any lineage to those who were emancipated by the American government.
And that goes to your statement about Kamala and Obama getting a check.
Right, they don't.
They won't.
Right.
They won't get a check, Representative Vernon Jones.
Well, I mean, you can't just completely throw that out, because Obama, they call him Black. Obama's mother is from Kansas. His father is from Kenya. Mm-hmm. Obama said he was born in the United States. When you look at Kamala, she's from the United States. Although she has some heritage going back to, I think, the Caribbeans. But what about the Blacks who have mixed heritage or lineage as well? Some of them can say they're direct descendants. Some of them can say, you know what, my daddy, when you go and start tracing lineage and all that, you're going to run into a lot of stuff. And you're going to run into a lot of, well, wait a minute, I think I should qualify here. So when you get into all of that and split all those hairs, it's going to be a nightmare. I just want to take a reasonable and a rational approach if we're going to address reparations. And again, I'll go back to this. Are people going to get checks? Because first of all, who's paying the federal government? You said the federal government is going to do this. Well, who's paying the federal government? You and me and Tamara, we're paying the federal government. So our money is going to go to the federal government and come back, and some of us going to get some and some of us not. And some of folks who say, well, I'm just as Black as I don't care about my lineage. I'm Black. I don't care. You can't find that much of me being Black from Africa. And there's so much into that. It's going to get so intertwined. But again, if we looked at from historical institutions, historical Black institutions that were founded because we could not go to those traditional majority colleges, you're educating the future. You're educating those who could take those resources and change the dynamics of the whole of our communities in terms of pulling ourselves up to the next level. But if you just give it to everybody out there who, for the most part, come on, let's think about it. When you hit the lottery, how many people hit the lottery millions and before you know it, they broke? They're broke. What's left? Nothing. But if you invest in that mind, that'll take that person to the grave and take some other people in the next generation to the grave, because when they make it, their kids are going to make it. So, we can go back and forth on that. The fact of it is, I think I clearly understand why there's a concern. And like you said, to some people were given reparations. We have not been given reparations. But if you're going to give it to us, I'm hearing about everybody's going to get $350,000. Well, you know what? If what people should be saying, Black people should be saying, you're sending billions to Ukraine.
Exactly.
But you can't send billions to our schools. You can't send billions to our infrastructure. you know, and you voting, they line up and vote for Joe Biden. When you look right now, again, in the Black community right now, there's been a 90% surge, higher than anybody else, on the increase of unemployment. How did that happen? Because they voted for Joe Biden, the man that's in charge. You can't say under Trump, Black people did extremely well under Trump. So, you know, to me, the focus, and I'm just speaking for me, my little world, I think we're getting caught up in the thick of thin things. This whole thing for Black people, start and stop with our vote. If you said something earlier, Marcel, and you say a lot of things, some things you say I think is on the moon, and some things you say I think is right here in front of me. This is one of those things right here in front of me. If 20% of Black people decided today they're going to vote in a Republican primary, they could determine who the Republican nominee is going to be. That's why every white politician running the Democrat ticket, they do everything they can to be the one to get the Black vote in the Democratic primary, because if you get that Black vote in that Democratic primary, more likely you're going to win the nomination. So what if Black people say, you know what, in this upcoming election 2024, 20% of us, we're going to show you guys, 20% of us just going to cross over and vote in Republican primary. And then 20% of us are going to vote in the general election. If you don't think that will not yield results and get people's attention, you're out of your mind. But guess what? Joe Biden and Democrats know what Black people, all we got to say, Republicans are going to put you back in chains. And you know what? Republicans are racist. And it's going to scare the hell out of Black people. And they're going to say, I'm taking the less of two evils. Joe Biden is the only evil because of what he's already done to Black people. And so, you know, reparations is important, but gosh, let's make sure we allocate those resources where we really see the long-term effects where it really lifted our entire community.
So let me ask you a question. I know you're short on time this evening, but do you not see the long-term effects of paying the debt that is owed to those of us who are descendants of chattel slavery?
So what is the debt? How much are you going to pay people?
Marcel, you want to jump in right there?
Yes, so it's been calculated. And Tamara, may I address something?
I'm just trying to get
right. Right, I understand.
How much do you give every Black person in this country?
You're asking questions that people need to hear the answers to, especially those on the Republican side, because sometimes we think, oh, those bigots, they don't think Black people deserve reparations, and sometimes it's just because they haven't been able to have a general conversation about it. So the case you made about tracing lineage, it's lineage-based, not race-based. In Obama's case, I don't know, man. Kamala's case, definitely not. But just like the good news about we live in America, America has historic precedent, right? When reparations was done for the Japanese Americans, even for Native Americans. And recently,
I'm with you on that, Marcel.
Right.
How much are you going to give Black people?
So the Black people underneath my plan will be paid at least a good $3 million per person, but it will not be done automatically in cash. It will be paid over a period of time via cash bonds, interest-bearing cash bonds. So that way it will not cause immediate hyperinflation. But I need to also address some of the things you said, Mr. Jones, real quick. Black Americans, even if we were going to just be frivolous with our money, which data has shown Black Americans are actually the most frugal with our money. We're the people who built Black Wall Streets from nothing, and we're still those same people. The stimulus checks underneath Trump's plan, when he did it underneath COVID, Black Americans started more new businesses than any other ethnic group. That's a fact that has been verified by various studies. We save more than any other group, even though we have the least amount of wealth. So that's number two. And number three, and this is very important because you mentioned California. What the California model shows, you set up an agency that vets claims. They don't look at you and say, you're Black, you get a check. No, they set up a department that's able to verify whether you have a connection to the lineage.
California hasn't done that yet.
They haven't done it, but it's in the plan. And the thing is, Mr. Jones, California is using historic precedent, like with the Japanese Americans. A lot of those Japanese Americans were dead who were put in concentration camps, but it went to and their spouses died too. And in that case, it went to their direct descendants. So even though they weren't the ones that were impacted by they were not the ones put in the concentration camp, their direct descendants were still eligible.
Who are the direct descendants of slavery?
The direct descendants are us.
You.
Your parents, I bet. Me, you, Mr. Joe, all three of us are. And let me explain. This is not the first time America's done that. There's another case of reparations going on that you might know about because you're in government. You know, the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act. Slow Joe Biden just renewed it. These were people who were exposed to radiation during America's era of nuclear weapon testing. That was it caused physical harm to them. Some of them have been dead. Their descendants, their children, sometimes even their grandchildren, it just says direct descendants, it doesn't put a limit on it, are still collecting checks, and Joe Biden just renewed it. So
here's where we are. Marcel. Here's where we are. We both, all of us agree that there is a need to have discussions about reparation, because I said earlier, we went over 275 years and worked and never got a paycheck.
Right.
I think what brings it to the forefront where I think reasonable minds can come together is what's going to be the criteria? Who's going to get, how you determine who gets what? And let's look at it. Again, is it going to be a paycheck versus this or that? So I think I am always open to hearing different things and hearing how we get from point A to point B. And even though we may still disagree, but I'm not backing off the fact that reparations is not something that should have happened for people of color, for Black people. And see, that's a whole nother issue too. Minorities. Minorities have been completely redefined. Minorities used to be Black people.
Exactly.
Now minority is an African who came in for the first time yesterday. Now a minority is a person, a white person who's gay. Now a minority is spread so much. So that's what has happened. That's why it's to the point now, and even Obama and NAACP got on board where they've conflicted, where gay rights has become the same as civil rights for Blacks. Civil rights for gays and civil rights for Black people, two different things, but they've been conflated. Now the gay community had used and got Black people out there carrying the banner, gay rights. Well, gay rights, again, rights for gays and civil rights for Blacks are two different things. You know, but it's been conflated. Same thing with minority now. Now, the city of Atlanta, for example, talking about contracts through procurement. Now, in terms of set aside for minorities, if you're a gay, now that is one of the ingredients. Now that is one of the things that's considered minority. And so this thing got to be cleared up, because I'm telling you, I give another example too. We talked about affirmative action.
I was going to bring that up. That's why I kind of appreciated that affirmative action ruling, where if you read the opinions, they were pretty much making the distinction that, hey, wait a minute, affirmative action was put in place to help the descendants of freedmen, those who were enslaved. And then they kind of made it that Clarence Thomas, like, there's a difference between a Black person from Nigeria who comes to America and a Black person who grew up and family has been in rural Alabama. So I'm glad, I appreciate that part of the affirmative action ruling that says, wait a minute, Black Americans, freedmen, are a completely different group from all these other groups that have been benefiting the most, like white women have been the main beneficiaries of affirmative action.
Yeah. And I know we kind of diverted. Tamara, you're a perfect host because you allow your folks to talk and stuff. You ask the right question. You know, when I look at the whole affirmative action thing too, I always said from day one that you can't discriminate against one race to favor another race. Because if it's a little poor white boy from South Georgia and his parents didn't go past the 3rd grade, nobody in his family has ever gone to college, he's the first time. Well, if they look at him because he's white, he can get knocked out of the box. But if you did it based on social economics, first of all, who's at the bottom of social economics? You're not doing it on race. You're doing it based on class, social economics. Or you can do it by zip code. If you use some of those zip codes in South DeKalb, what are you going to get? You know, and I know what we're going to get, right, Tamara? So, but the fact of it is, also, when you see a Black kid walk across campus, he's thinking to say, oh, they're going to think I'm here. This was pre knocking down affirmative action, but are they going to think I'm here just because I'm Black? or did I get here because what was in my head? Then the white kid's gonna look at the black kid. Well, you only here because you of affirmative action. Well, now when that black kid walk across that campus, I got here the same way you got here.
Well, I would say
that white kid got to say, well, you know, he got here because how I got here. But
a lot of the white kids,
tragedy. But here's the bigger tragedy, in my opinion. When you look at the legacy program, first of all, 70% of all students admitted to Harvard are white. 70%. 28% of that 78% get there on the legacy program, meaning their parent went there. Well, my parent or my grandparents couldn't have gone there. Matter of fact, my parents were kept out of school at one point. So when I look at that, that's something that they should not be used. Or if you're a big donor, then your kid get in this way and that way because you're a big donor. So if you really try, there's so many ways they can do this that can really still help those who are less fortunate. There's so many ways to do it, but race cannot. And you know, who brought the cases? If you look at the families who were affected by this, they're liberals and they vote Democrat.
I know.
Look at California.
Let's bring us back. Bring us back around, because this broadcast, I really want us to focus on the right being Black inside of the Republican Party and reparations. We are Black America. We're in some terrible times, Representative Vernon Jones. You recognize that. What is it that you can say or do right now in this moment? Because neither party right now has been fair to Black America. So where can we take this conversation?
Well, first of all, if you've been given one party 90% of your vote for the past 60 years, something's wrong with you. The Native Americans don't do it. The Asians don't do it. The Hispanics don't do it. The Jewish community do not do it. I mean, what in the world? What? It doesn't that stick out like a sore thumb.
It does. And that's why it's time, Representative Vernon Jones, that we get in. There has to be an exchange for this vote. We're not giving it away for free anymore. That's just that Black America is not coming to the polls and voting blue no matter who. And then we're not running over to the Republican Party to be bamboozled. So
exactly. But I won't say running to the Republican Party being bamboozled. I think what it said, no party can take my vote for granted. Because see, if enough of us were to vote in the Republican primary, I said earlier, we could determine who would be the nominee. We can determine who would be the nominee from both parties. We can make that difference. We can make the difference on who wins the election. But my problem is, I'm hoping Black people stop this foolishness that if Black people don't vote for one party, you come under attack. More Black people are mad at me than Joe Biden. Joe Biden locked your son up, your daddy up, your uncle up. Joe Biden is affecting your unemployment. Joe Biden is wanting to do more for illegals coming from another country, put them up in hotels and give them computers and flat screen TVs.
Food, everything.
And he's doing for Black veterans who living on the bridges. So why are you mad at me? Why are you mad at me?
Let me tell you why I think they're mad at you. Let me answer that. I think they're mad at you because you are in position now. You're inside of the Republican Party. So they're looking at you like, okay, are you going to take our issues? Are you going to really carry our issues inside the Republican Party? Are you going to go and get what we're demanding?
I don't mean to, let me just for a second. Mm-hmm. Black people are afraid to even meet with Republicans, especially the so-called, look at Ice Cube. Ice Cube is getting ready to come out now. He's going on every platform. He's been iced from his new basketball league he started. Why? Because he met with Donald Trump and helped shape what they call the Black Plan, $500 billion for Black businesses. They got mad because he just met with Donald Trump. When Steve Harvey, when Donald Trump first got elected, and Steve Harvey went to meet with President Trump during the transition, he said, I want to talk to you about all the killings and all the murders and all the high crime and unemployment in Detroit. What happened? When the Black people finished beating him up and kicking him around, Steve Harvey been running the other way ever since. And Obama never invited him to the White House to talk about what's going on in the Black community. So it ain't that when you go to what you're going to do. Ben Carson, one of the smartest men I know, just the fact that he went and took a job with the Republican administration, he was ostracized. There are Black people who just despise because they're so messed up in the head. That's how much brainwashes that happen to Black people. So we got to stop. Why can't we be? You know, white people do not attack white people based on race if they support a particular party or not. Black people attack black people based on race if they support a particular party or not. See, that race thing runs so deep where liberals have just gone and have beaten our brains. You better vote Democrats. Republicans are racist. It's so engraved and embedded in our minds until you become the attack dog for liberals. So you want to attack a black and just thinking independent.
Come back to the question, Representative Vernon Jones. What are you able to do as a black man that look like us with the same lineage as us? What are you able to do inside the
I'm doing it right now. I'm appearing on your platform because more likely you have a lot of African Americans on your platform. Mm-hmm. And I want them to hear what I have to say. Not because you know what? Nothing I've said, and I don't think if we had the most liberal black person on here right now, they would agree with 99% of stuff I just said. Oh, you agree with me? Then why are you mad at me? I don't have to change my when I go before Republicans, I don't have to change my tone. I don't have to change my message. My message can go anywhere. Black people, because I'm black. I know black people. I raised black. I know black people. I know black culture. Sure I do. And nobody would disagree with what I just said. All the things I talked about faith-based, hard work, education, the nuclear of the black family. Nobody can agree. And find me one person. I want somebody to find me one person that's black that can't have they can't vote because they don't have a photo ID. Find one for me.
Well, Mr. Jones,
I can't get one found.
Let me give you an example. So I'm here in South Carolina, which is a very red state. It should be as red as it is. But, I don't care if it's red. I don't care if it's blue, purple. I want the state to focus on the most neglected group, which is black. I've been meeting with Republicans. You know a word that they've been really learning to embrace? Lineage. It's like you mentioned affirmative action. When Lyndon B. Johnson introduced affirmative action, Tamara, I don't want to deflect too much, but I just want to mention this. Lyndon B. Johnson said, you don't bring a man up to the starting line in a race 300 years after another man has been able to start and then say, go ahead and catch up. So affirmative action was never supposed to be based on race in the first place. It was supposed to be based on the lineage of that you and Tamara and I have. And I will also say this. I do feel that we, at least I'm speaking for myself personally, I feel we missed an opportunity when Donald Trump was in office because a lot of his team was really here in South Carolina trying to court the black vote. My thing is always, I don't care what party you're from, tell me the policies you're going to do. And I wasn't really involved in politics at the time, but if I was, I would have been right there speaking with them to see what policies we could get from them. Because here's the thing I want to bring up. We talked about reparations. I want to give you two responses. When Joe Biden was asked about reparations in the 1970s, he said it was a disgusting response he gave. He said, I'll be damned if I feel responsible for what happened. And this was at the time Jim Crow was literally still happening in certain parts of the South. They hadn't fully dismantled it yet. When Trump was asked about reparations, he didn't give such vitriol. He said, it sounds interesting, but I don't know if it'll be realistic to happen. But he didn't come out with the same level of hatred. Another thing, Joe Biden won't even say black people built the nation. He will say immigrants. He'll say aliens built it before he gives credit to black Americans. Trump, not once, but twice. And I've been looking to see if any other president has ever said this. I haven't found it. I can't say any other president did not. I know Obama didn't say it. I know Biden's never said it. But Trump twice said black Americans built the nation and were never given the credit that they deserve. So there is an opening there where we can see what policies based on lineage that we can get from at least Trump, because a lot of Republicans can be anti-black too. But yes,
Marcel, here, and I want to go back to you, Tamara. Here's the part: until we get past it, it's not going to change with black voters until we get past it. Black people use one thing to determine if they're going to vote for you or not. For the most part, most black people,
your party,
and it's a single letter. If there's an R beside your name versus a D beside your name. David Dukes, the biggest Klansman there is, can run right now in the black community. If he has a D beside his name, black people will vote for him over a Republican. That's not a Klansman. And until they get past that and stop attacking blacks from just saying, wait a minute, I just don't want to vote for Joe Biden. How is it that you can attack me because I don't vote for your man? I'm not attacking you for voting for Joe Biden. This is just who I feel that's best for me, my pocketbook. And the simple test, Interest rates 3 years ago under Trump was around 3%. Now they're 7%. What was a gallon of milk then versus now? A gallon of gasoline then versus now? Materials for homes versus now? What was unemployment then versus now? And when they want to say I'm gonna vote for the lesser two evils, no, you're not. You're just gonna vote for someone who has a D beside your name.
Well, the lesser of two evils between Trump and Biden was not Biden. Biden has been in office for 40 to 50 years, and he has a long history. We talk about the crime bill, but before the crime bill, he was trying to usher in other mass incarceration bills in the 70s and 80s. And even Reagan and Nixon said to him, you were going too far. This man was not just colleagues with Ku Klux Klan members and white supremacists. He was good friends with them. And the reason he buddied up with them was to keep Black kids out of better funded schools. So Biden has been in office 40 and 50 years. Another thing I want to bring up, and this is something this is going back to the Democratic Party and why we should owe no allegiance to any party. Biden's been in office 40 and 50 years. If he was the answer to our problems, or if he was the lesser of two evils, then why have we not seen any big benefit from him being in office in the 40 and 50 years? And not only do Black voters get mad at you if you say that you're not just going to vote for a Democrat, if you run even as a Democrat, like Tamara and I experienced, but you are calling out the Democratic Party, or you're challenging the Democratic establishment saying, hey, Black voters are the reason you exist. It's time to listen for Black voters. They viciously come after you. Tamara can talk about it, and I can talk about it, and so can you.
Well, here's what's interesting, and you kind of touched on it too. Joe Biden locked Black people up. Donald Trump released Black people from jail. Just on that alone. You can't see that? Trump locked down, Miss Johnson was locked up by Donald Trump and by Joe Biden's crime bill. Donald Trump let Miss Johnson out. Miss Johnson was in jail. She served 23 years, had 22 more years to serve. Twice she petitioned the Obama administration with a Black attorney general and a so-called Black president. Twice she petitioned to be released. No pardon, just be released. And they wouldn't do it. Trump comes and let this lady out. A model inmate only went to jail for making a phone call on behalf of a drug dealer. And she received all that to 45 plus years in prison. Now, you can put it in front of Black people, Black and white. And they still, because that D name. And what is Joe Biden going to say? Republicans are racist. What the CNN going to say? MSNBC, ABC, Joy Reid. Joy Reid doing everything she can with her hair to be a white woman. Everything she can. We call her hair wash now. Everything she can. And you know what? She gets up there and attack Black men like me and you for just our independent thoughts. And then when I hear these liberal white folks, from The View to Rachel Maddow. Rachel Maddow killed, but she always attacking white men, but she want to look like one. I can't understand that. But they'll get up there and they'll tell us, oh, these folks not good for Black people. Isn't it amazing when you hear liberal white people tell Black people, oh, they don't like you, they don't this, they don't that. But those same liberal white people, the minute you disagree with them, they will come at you. And see, that's what liberal whites do. They want to control Black people and their complete thought. When you wake up in the morning till you go to bed at night, and the minute you disagree with them, you're going to have problems. Look how many Blacks that were on CNN, when they finally speak their mind or disagree, they get thrown off. From Roland Martin, and he killed me because he was their major attack dog. But they threw his butt off. Why did they throw him off? Because one time he said something that the white liberals didn't want him to say about, or giving a Republican a credit, like Van Jones. When Van Jones said, I got to give Trump the credit. Well, they gave Van Jones a hard time. Why? White people can give white people credit. White liberals can give white Republicans credit and not be said about it. So is this, so Tamara,
I'm going to say this because there's a new generation of us. We're not going to the polls just voting because somebody has a D behind their names. That's not who we are. That's not how we built. We're not voting blue no matter who. We are specifically looking for policy that will change the state and fate of Black America, and that is reparations. And here's what I've been telling and having when I've been having conversations with Republicans, that it will stimulate the economy. If we get money, you know what we're going to do with it. We're going to put it right back in this economy. We're going to spend it right here in America. It will stimulate the economy. Republicans always talk about their tax burden. It will lower your tax burden. Let's talk about, reallocating or eliminating some of these dead end social programs. You want to say where we get this money from? We're wasting a lot of money. Let's either eliminate or reallocate monies from dead end social programs. This will help with immigration. Black people, we're innate to the land. Give us our land. Let us start doing what we know how to do with the land. We could turn this whole country around with just this one single policy. So I hope, Representative Vernon Jones, I know we're almost at the top of the hour. I hope that you'll take some of this back to those that are willing to hear us. Marcel and I have been navigating Republican spaces, and I'm gonna tell you, some of this is bouncing off the wall. It's not going anywhere. But I wanted to have you because I know you have a presence as a Black man inside this Republican Party, that there's a generation of us, we're all about policy, and reparations, hands down, is the only policy that will change the state and fate of Black America.
Well, and we've been targeted too. I just want to bring that up. I want to emphasize that. We've been targeted. Tamara's been targeted. I've been targeted. We both have taken some severe personal loss because we stood up against the Democratic establishment. They claim they care about Black people, and yet we're running on reparations, true reparations, not their phony reparations bill, but we're truly under reparations. You think the Democratic Party will be for us? They have come after us the hardest. Our biggest opponents haven't been the white conservatives that you would have thought. It's been these white liberals and then these Black people who think they're Democrats before they're Black. So we've taken personal loss. I'm not going to put Tamara's business, but me, my job, my pension, a few things, because we went against the Democratic establishment. And so I just want to keep emphasizing that too.
Yeah. And Representative Vernon Jones, we have about 4 more minutes before the top of the hour, and I definitely want to give you the final words.
The left, period, I don't care if you're Black or white. If you don't agree with the left, those liberals, they attack you. I don't care if you're Republican and conservative, they still going to attack you. But they definitely want to come at Blacks because they can't survive without that nutrient of the Black vote. The uproar should not be demanding what the Republicans are going to do for you. That shouldn't be where the cause should be. The cause should be is standing up to those Democrats, and how you stand up to those Democrats and put them out of business. Go one election cycle and don't vote for them and watch what happens. That's the only thing that's going to whip them. Because as long as they can use their friends in the net and the TV and make Trump the racist, and Joe Biden, we know he doesn't even know what state he's in, and they prop him up. And they're not going at Joe Biden right now about what's happening with unemployment rate, because he's been bragging about this Bidenomics. It's a sham. And so I just want to say first of all, to your audience, I'm glad I got an opportunity to come to you and say a few words. You can go to my Twitter for Vernon GA. I'm sorry, Vernon FORGA. That's Vernon FORGA on Twitter. I'm on Facebook, Representative Vernon Jones. I'm on Instagram. But I just want any Black. I want to take this to the Black audience right now. If you're listening to me, just look at yourself and ask yourself, since you've been voting, how many times you voted for anybody other than a Democrat? And if you're having issues right now and you've been voting Democrat the entire time, you can't blame that on the Republicans because you've been voting for Democrats. Republicans really don't owe you nothing. You haven't been voting for them. It's the Democrats you've been voting for, and they've given you nothing. They're going to continue to give you nothing because they're using the Black vote to carry the liberal agenda. And what is that? You know, that is making you think that a man can have a baby. It's now they're attacking churches. Used to be the Klans burning churches. Now Antifa and Black Lives Matter, they're shooting and killing your kids and Black police officers and destroying Black businesses. That's who's doing it. And so just wake up. Just wake up. I'm not trying to get anybody to change parties. I'm just trying to get you to change lanes and think for yourself. That's all I want to say to your voters, to your viewers. I just want Black people to think for themselves. Just think. Stop. Think. Just think. You can vote for whoever you want to vote for. It makes me sick when I hear the NAACP and all those other Black groups. I don't care. You go vote for it. Just go and vote. That's a damn lie. That is a damn lie. Because now the NAACP is a 501c4. They used to be a 501c3 not-for-profit. They're a 501c4. They're an extension now of the Democratic Party. They're an extension of the Democratic Party. Yes, the NAACP. The ones who told black people, don't go to Florida because how they're treating blacks and the LGBTQ community. You know, matter of fact, now it's called the NAACP LGBTQ because they're carrying their water. They're carrying their water for them. Let's get back to black values. Hard work, education, have your own business. And the world doesn't owe you anything, especially the government doesn't owe you anything. I want to be able to work for my own. Let me have my business. Give me opportunity. Let me work for my own. Because right now, those who've been given welfare, there's generations of black people who've fallen into the crutches of welfare. That's right, welfare, where they rely on the government, public housing, and they tell you your father can't live in the house if you're a single mother and you're getting welfare, or if you're married, you can't get that welfare check anymore. So it's killed marriages. So
they did that on purpose. They did that on purpose.
So anyhow, but look, I'm sorry. I know we're at the top of the hour. Marcel, you're a patriot. Good to see you. Tamara, please allow me to come back on your show again. What you're doing is making a difference right now. Your platform. I mean, you just decided one day, you know what? I want to do something big. You may not get elected to public office, but you're reaching people, and people are tuning in. You got me tuned in. I'm sure others are tuning in as well. So thank you so much for the opportunity. Marcel, take care of the Palmetto State. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Thank you,
Mr. Jones. Thank you for being our very special guest. This was an exclusive. I had to not only have you on the Clubhouse app, which you got a big audience over there. And after this is the after party is on the Clubhouse app, everybody. So if you want to come over to the Clubhouse app, it's the Reaching Across the Aisle House. Come over and let's have some extended conversation around this discussion tonight. And Mr. Jones, again, thank you. Please take our demand back to the Republican Party that reparations is the policy that will change the state and fate of Black America, and it will make America great again.
All right.
Thank you. Marcel, you want to have a few parting words?
Well, I will say again, it is policy over party. And I will say that America, any true American needs to understand it's either justice for all or it's justice for one. The American government has done reparations for a whole swath of Native American tribes who are still collecting checks as we speak with a long range of other programs. They've done it for Japanese Americans who were interned, those exposed to radiation, those who were taken hostages by Iran. And in many of those cases, if the people who were wronged were dead, it either went to their spouse or it went to their direct descendants. So when America causes a wrong, America has a responsibility to repair that wrong, as they've done for other groups, usually by direct cash payments. That's Ronald Reagan who made that point when he signed the reparations bill for interned Japanese, and even if they were dead, it went to their direct descendants. America has put Black Americans, be it stealing our land, lynch mobs, chattel slavery, Jim Crow, in a position of being a wealthless class. We've survived and to a certain extent have thrived in spite of America, not because of anything America's given us. The number one recipients of welfare are actually white Americans. It should be Black Americans of any group because of what they've done to us. And yet, in spite of what America's done to us, we are usually pulling ourselves up by our bootless straps. And even when we was all wealthy, America was still owe us reparations. And the truth of the matter is, reparations only for freedmen, Black descendants of American slaves, but it's going to help everyone. I'm going to end with one of the words of my favorite politicians, Robert Smalls, who's right here, 15 minutes from Beaufort, South Carolina. He said that the Negro is here to stay, and it is to the white man's benefit that the Negro gets everything he's due. So what's good for Black Americans is good for white Americans, Asian Americans, all Americans. Because if we're all Americans and we're in this together, then you can't deny justice to me without understanding that if you deny justice to me, it will come back around to you.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to reach out and just, Marcel, if you can join us on the Clubhouse app for the after party, that would be great. We're on the Clubhouse app.
I ain't been there in a while. I even remember how to get on there.
Please come over to the Clubhouse app for a few minutes. So I am Tamara Johnson Shealy. I have started a GoFundMe Reaching Across the Aisle tour. I wanted to launch it tonight on the heels of this discussion. We have to go around the state here in Georgia. You know, we don't have a whole lot of time. We have House Bill 89. For those of you that don't know, it mirrors California's legislation. House Bill 89 right here in the great state of Georgia. This bill has to pass. We hands down, we got to get a reparations study commission here in the state. We got to get reparations implemented on a federal level. We have work to do. Things are just not looking good. This economy is going to hell, and we're all feeling the pinch. When you're going in the grocery store, when you're buying gas, just trying to survive right now, we're all feeling the pinch. So go to the GoFundMe, Reaching Across the Aisle. It is a tour, and I am determined to do my part in this time that we have to make sure that House Bill 89 is passed. We continue to raise awareness about reparations. We continue to talk about election integrity, because these elections they're not fair. These numbers they're not right. So we have a lot of work to do in a very short time to do it. So again, Marcel, this was great tonight. Thank you for being my
guest. It was. May I say something really quick? Because I already know some of the things that people will say, and I can't address all, but I will address this. Right now, you're going to have people saying the Democrats are the reason a little bit of reparations is happening. First of all, if the Democrats were really going to want to do reparations for Black Americans, they had ample time to do it. And right now, you have majority Democratic states, and they ain't thinking about reparations. Second of all, if they are doing it, it's what they owe us. And third of all, a lot of these reparations bills, like the one Cori Bush introduced, are faux reparations. It ain't even really reparations, and they know that, for those who will come back with that. So, Tamara, thank you for helping me, and I'm trying to get into this Clubhouse app, see if I can remember, but I definitely want to be there, okay?
Please come over, y'all. Thank y'all for joining us. We're going to do this again.
Yeah.
Now, the title of this book will grab you. It is Faith, Purpose, and Politics, Running the Race of My Life. Immediately, I was captivated. Tell me about how you chose your title.
Oh, you know, I don't think I chose this title. It just came to me, and because I know I was in the race of my life.
When we come to Washington in this campaign, we're coming to get our check. Young prodigies. Grow. Free. Reparations, Martin said we coming for our check. Reparations, say it loud, 1, 2, mic check. Cream, cash rules everything around me. Dream, my legacy, you can't stop me. Coming for our 40 acres, HR 40 and our paper.
Kicking the door, coming for our 40 acres and more. Our 6.4 trillion. Miss that no, we fought the Civil War. We came from the poor. Freedmen.
Start from the bottom, we still on the floor. We pray to the Lord.
Amen.
Picking the cotton, our fingers are sore.
Straight out the underground, escaping from slavery. The only cemeteries that we had were the trees. Watching our bodies while they blew in the breeze. Thinking to the north side to get free.
That way came from slavery. Where's on the mirror, once you sit on me? Put her head on the door, put the werewolf schemes. Stick to the north side to get free.
Reparations, Martin said we coming for our check. Reparations, say it loud, 1, 2, mic check. Cream, cash rules everything around me. Dream, my legacy, you can't stop me. Coming for our 40 acres, HR 40 and our
look,
paper.
we taking them back. Putting Pettis Bridge on the map. Police came with the strap. That Sunday was bloody, no cap.
Stop capping.
Speaking of cap,
Kaepernick taking knees at the flag. Where my justice at? We built this nation, better give me them rack. All fat, just imagine a little bit of gasoline. 4 girls got bombed back in 63.
400 years, yeah, we still ain't free. Our rise, we rise, take a knee.
Kaepernick. Reparations, Martin said we coming for our check. Reparations, say it loud, 1, 2, mic check. Cream, cash rules everything around me. Dream, my legacy, you can't stop me.
Coming for our 40 acres, HR 40 and our paper.
We stuck in the trap, with no shoes, trying to pull up bootstraps. Increasing the gap, wealth got bigger, so we had to adapt. Discriminated cause we black, I know it worth more than I know it's a fact. They tryna feel scraps, drag me on board so we can't come back.
30 years ago on April 19, Yusef and Triremi chemical read.
If it happened to them, think it happened to me. Screaming out, ready 5 to it free.
Prodigy.
Reparations.